guys, welcome to FPL Surgery. This is the introduction for 8 simple rules. We're going to be going through what the rules are, and then we're also going to be going through Flapjack's history with the rules and his last season. My name is FPL Dave, and with me as always is Rich. Rich, are you looking forward to this one?
Kind of. I kind of am, but I know I'm going to get absolutely roasted, and I completely deserve it. But I am looking forward to this. Looking back, it can be fun. Maybe not in this case, but generally.
It's going to be fun for me. I had an okay season.
I would try and enjoy it. Like I don't know what the word is. Sadomaso. I don't even know the phrase.
But I think you're right though. Like you will be able to learn, and the only way to learn is to fail. Because if you did it right, you wouldn't learn anything. So there we go. So at least you've got that.
I wouldn't call it failing. Actually, it was much worse than failing what happened last season. But
and remember, guys, please, as we are trying to build this new channel, just subscribe. That'd be great. And we've got a little graphic just to make yourself feel a little bit better about it. Go on. I know you want to. Have you subscribed, Rich?
I've subscribed on 3 different accounts. So I am a large percentage of our
You are 25% of our... Oh, we've got more than 12, surely.
I'm I've unplugged myself due to the excitement.
Are you okay?
I'm back.
Shall we continue? I feel like you're just trying to bail from this idea. Okay, so 8 simple rules. The very easy explanation was I did really bad in FPL one season, and I thought, you know what, my ideas were all over the place. I wasn't really going anywhere. I was doing hits all the time, or I was playing as one manager and then moving on as a different manager, and I couldn't really find and center myself into what I wanted to do. So the pre-season after that, I decided to write down a bunch of rules that I thought I could follow, and then I brought awesome managers who are actually really good at this game. I brought them in. Me. And Rich, who was a good manager at the time. I brought everyone in to tell me what they thought of the rules, how I could maybe improve them, or if they agreed with them or whatever. And then I went through the season, and I came 21k or something, which was a massive improvement on my top 200k from the season before. So I really think they did well, and I wanted to bring them back this season just so... Number one, so it can be on this channel with a video, because, you know, videos are much better. And number two is because I think that we can really do well with me and you both doing it with the other guests. I think that's going to be a really good dynamic, and it means that we can give even more advice. And also, having done it for a year, I think an update is necessary, because I've tweaked the rules slightly as well. But first, I'm going to have to ask, how was your season last year?
As in the season just gone, or the one before that?
No. The one just gone.
Yeah, it was my worst ever season. Of 9 seasons, my season was... I finished 750k, which is more than all my seasons combined ever, and then multiplied. And it's still like, it was bad. And I mean, I was never higher than 750k. That was like a peak for me.
So it didn't.
I was
go
glad
to plan.
The season ended. But I felt like if there was another 50 weeks or so, I reckon I could have got in the top 10k.
Okay. And if I could zoom in on your face and you could give me a face, what would you like to just to say, you know, if you're happy or you're excited about next season or you're worried or whatever, like just look into that camera, give me a few words on, you know, how you're feeling about this video. So sorry.
It's a very hot day as well.
That was so good.
That was pain in video form.
Oh, this is why we do video, guys. Okay, so did you follow the rules last season? Is a good way to put it, because you were one of several people who were like, you know, I really enjoyed the rules aspect, and yeah, you were all praise, and you thought it was a great idea, and you were going to follow them. So did you?
I don't know. I guess that's the point of the video. Like I followed my own rules. I didn't follow the 8 simple rules, but as your rank shows compared to mine, maybe I should have.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's put an asterisk in the season, and it was a bit of a chaos season. There was no normal order to it, right?
Hmm.
The yin and yang of seasons. For this one, it was very much a chaos. So, in that respect, like you can be forgiven slightly, as you are more of how should I put it nicely? You're a
That's
crazy
tough.
manager. Like you'll do crazy stuff. You're a maverick is the way is
There's
the
always
community
I
term.
I like to think there's always reason to it though. Like it's not just for fun.
No,
Like
I'm
there's
assuming not.
normally logic to it. Obviously, at the end of last season, there was a couple of things that I would not ever do normally, but I was just like, almost didn't care. Like captaining Ben Rama, even captaining Bale. Ben
Didn't
Rama got an assist, by the
I was
way.
gonna say, didn't that pay off? I'm sure that paid
Yeah,
off.
because Bruno blanked, so I gained 3 points on everyone.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
lad. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I think, just to give people a little introduction to the rules, I'll go through them quickly, and then we'll look at. I've selected five of the rules that we did last season with you, because they're slightly different this season. I've upgraded them definitely, and I've selected five things that you said before, and I'm gonna play them for everyone, and then we can talk about it. Jake,
Oh, I can't wait.
that
Can't
sounds
wait to
good,
hear
right?
these. I'm sure they're not cherry picked at all.
No, no, not even a little bit. They're just randomly selected for your listening pleasure. Okay, so the eight simple rules are template team to start the season, use price points to balance team, simple captain choices, no hits, minimal core team transfers, plan your wildcard timing, no team or player bias. And then I added a wee guest rule at the end. So rule number 8 is just whatever the guest brings. And yours was wild last time, but we'll get into that. So the first one we're going to look at is the template team to start the season. And we're going to play the little clip to hear what you had to say last time, and we can talk through it. You ready?
Ready?
All right, let's listen.
Because I wildcard early, generally, I do probably go a bit safer than normal, in the first week. Like, I know I don't desperately want Aubameyang, even though he's playing Fulham. However, a lot of people are going to have him, so I'm probably going to squeeze him in. Because what I don't want to do, I don't want to get a first game week rank of like 6 million, and then it's all uphill from there.
And stop the clip.
Yeah.
All right, what are you thinking?
I'm. To be fair, we did record this a few weeks before even the start of the season. It was probably like this time last year in terms of where the season
Yeah,
began.
that's
But
true. We're right now. It's the 18th, right? So the day of recording, and we probably recorded about 4 weeks before the start of the season.
yeah, but the thing I'm surprised with is that I was trying to be safe, so I went for Aubameyang. However, I didn't own Salah.
Who got
So
20 points game week 1, right?
yeah, and to be fair, it was a bit of a freak result that he got 2 penalties. He got his highest game week score of the season.
Oh, really?
That game week when I didn't own him. So people got 40 points, whereas obviously I didn't even own Salah. So it's funny listening to myself say I'm going to go Aubameyang because it's safe, and then I ignored Salah. That's
Yeah. What was it?
Yeah.
Do you remember your reasoning to ignore Salah? Did you go for Mane or something, or was there anything that you did differently that where did the money go?
I started with Kane, Vardy, and Werner up front. And not a lot of people had
safe.
Kane or Vardy. A lot of people had Werner. So to be fair, Kane and Vardy started very, very well, and people kept Kane for like the entire season on top of that. So
Yeah.
I don't think it was a massive mistake going for Kane, obviously, but maybe I should have gone without Aubameyang instead of Salah. But is that hindsight?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, to be fair, Vardy's like a season keeper and has always been really high. Kane's done well. It's just kind of mental to go against because you said they're like 6 million in the world and then have an uphill battle, which actually eventually happened, right? I don't remember do you remember what your overall rank was like towards the start of the season? Were you doing well?
Probably I was hovering around the 4 or 5 million mark, which is horrific.
That's where you didn't. Yeah, that's where you didn't want to be, right?
No, but I mean, it was worse against mid-league rivals though, because they had Salah captain 40. They were 40 points up on me before lunchtime at the end of the first game week.
Yeah, so you're miles behind already. But I think the thing that's interesting there is that because you said you were gonna go safe, the difference between my safe and your safe were just a couple of players. But for me, going safe is like picking the highest owned player and captaining him because everyone else is captaining him, and try and get into the top million in game week 1 or whatever, and use differentials to kind of propel myself up the ranks. But you were like, I don't know, I feel like that's not safe. I feel like what you did was good. Like it's justifiable, but would you be looking to do the same thing again? Like, are you going to start without Salah this year?
I'm almost scared to say, because obviously we're again recording 4 weeks before the season starts. But my plan at the moment is to go for Salah and captain him, and that will be the safe thing to do.
That is.
But I'm just not averse to doing the things that I believe in. So Kane, for example, not many people have Kane. I'm almost certainly going to start with him.
I think that's interesting though, because obviously we're going into the Salah thing. But in terms of the rule, template team to start the season, did you do that though, other than Salah not being in there? Because the whole point in this is so that we are safe to continue the season, maybe for 4 game weeks, and then wildcard if we want to, and use a wee bit of differentials here and there to kind of help us propel our overall rank. That's the whole point in the rule. It's just to make it's as safe as possible start, so that we're not fighting from the back. So do you feel like you did that? Because you ended up fighting from the back anyway.
I feel like I still did go quite template, because I had players like Aubameyang and Werner, who I feel like they were just to cover the big name players.
Yeah.
I had Trent, for example. My front line was a bit weird. So I had Vardy, Kane and Werner, like I mentioned, and the sacrifice there was I didn't have Salah.
Yeah. But what other what midfielders did you start with then? Because that's like, what, 30 million or something in your front three?
I mean, I can tell you my full team if you like. I had McCarthy, then I had Holding, Justin and Trent.
Yeah, that's template pretty much.
Yeah, then midfield I had Ward-Prowse, Havertz, Souček. So I've got the downloaded data, so it's a little bit weird.
No, that's okay.
The way it displays it. But yeah, sorry. So my midfield was Aubameyang, Ward-Prowse, Havertz, and Souček.
That is a weird midfield, to be fair.
But again, Ward-Prowse was one of the highest scorers in the game. Souček was a player who punished me later in the season because I wildcarded him out.
I think everyone started with him for some reason. I even started with him. I didn't even want him. I don't remember why.
But he was 5 million. There wasn't many good options around that price point. That price point for midfielders.
Maximum.
But like looking at my team, it would have done very well if it was a zombie team. I had players like James Justin. I had Holding, who did quite well. You know, I had Souček, Kane, Vardy, obviously were standouts.
It's interesting though, because
he was up there as well. Like,
I
like Ward-Prowse, and I thought it'd be on penalties, but he wasn't.
That's interesting. So to be honest, the template then, what we're getting from this really is that the percentage owned is a big part of having a template team, because even though you'd have players that did well, to be punished from highly owned players is worse than having a few decent ones that other people didn't have, at least to start with. Yeah,
I can see that. But the problem is with going percentage owned, like in the first game week, is you're relying on a lot of that's autocomplete teams and idiots. Might as well. It's a horrible thing to say, but I think the percentages
Who's the idiot that didn't start with Salah, you bum?
Yeah, well, no, and I'm sure many people in the office would agree with that, but I don't know. I don't think percentage owned is that strong game week 1. There's a lot of autocomplete teams. There's a lot of people
I'm talking more like the Salahs and the Kanes and the De Bruynes and like going. Well, I don't really know what it is this season yet.
Players like. And this is another weird thing about last season, because you mentioned KDB, but obviously Man City had a blank in game week 1, so no one had Man City players. And Kane, I think I owned him game week 1. He was about 2% owned, 3% owned.
Yeah. So that was one of your differentials.
My headphones out again.
That was one of your differentials, though. That's interesting. Right. Are you back? Are we back? He's getting so animated, guys. He's so excited. Look at your passion. Sorry. You're pulling your computer apart. No, that's okay. We're going to move on anyway. The next one is the price points clip. So I'm going to play that now. Right?
I'm ready.
Perfect.
Let's go.
Right, do it.
I mean, even with price points, you've got to get those price points right to stop yourself needing hits down the line. I mean, if you went for a premium striker, for example, and suddenly you don't like, there's no good premium strikers, you're still going to have to downgrade the striker and then use a transfer somewhere else to use the money. So I think you have to get very lucky to get the price points all correct, because if you went for Trent and Robertson, for example,
Yeah.
then you've got two premium defenders. You're relying on the Liverpool defence being good, and the same with the strikers.
I think that's good. So it's a decent point that you made. How did that work out with your loads of premium strikers and everything? How did that work with your balance in your team for using price points then? Because your point was that you have to be very lucky with the price points, but do you feel like you were lucky with yours?
I mean, it's a weird one because I did end up, and I'm sure we'll get onto it later, I ended up wildcarding after game week 3. So
yeah,
it didn't really matter that much when I played the wildcard. What price points I had. It was only for those first 2 weeks.
So you went hard the first 3, you didn't really bother with the price points because you knew you were going to be wildcarding anyway. I think that's what you were talking about last year as well. That, to be honest, your wildcard team was the one that you would need to be focusing on price points and stuff. Do you tend to use them then? I
nearly always wildcard early, so price points don't bother me too much. I mean, I remember the point you made last year, and it was a really, really good point, Dave, that you wildcard and then you still got to set price points at the time you wildcard.
Yeah.
But then if you've got the price points wrong, which can happen, and say you have one premium striker, so people this season might just look at going for Kane, and that will be their only premium striker, or they might not have Kane. If you got Kane as a price point pick and then downgraded him, suddenly you might have like 5-6 million in the bank, which you need to spend. So then you probably end up doing a hit if you want to spread that value around the team, unless you're feeling very patient.
Yeah.
That's the downside with price points. So I can see it to some extent. Like, I wouldn't pick 4.0 million defenders, but that's for different reasons, isn't it? Because they probably wouldn't even play.
Not be good. I think you're right in that you need to be lucky, and that there is going to be a large chunk of change if you were to start downgrading high price points. But I think the point, and it comes from Joe at Scout, which was just, I always want to be able to get to a player within 2 moves. So a downgrade here and an upgrade there. But where the price points seem to fall out slightly of alignment is when people downgrade and then they upgrade 3 other players with the money. And then in that case, you started well with your price points, but then you lost it where you spent the money. And the problem with that is that then you would need to make 3 or 4 transfers to do that, and then 3 or 4 transfers to get back the way. So, and also the thing that you said there was the patience thing. Like in the last season, I had like 4 million in the bank just sitting there quite a lot of the time. Like, I was just one of these people that I show people my team and they would look at it and go, there's something missing. And I'd be like, oh yeah, and I've got, 4.8 million.
Yeah, I remember that. I was probably one of those people.
Yeah, and it's just because I hadn't found a good place to spend the money that I'd just downgraded. I just knew that I didn't want that player, and I was waiting on a player coming good or someone that I knew, and I was able to then move that price point from striker to midfield or whatever, and it seemed to be really good. So maybe that's a caveat that we need to put in this, is that if you're going to use price points, not only do you need to use it consistently, or else you might lose that balance, but on top of that, you need to be patient when you use them, and don't just spend the money just because you have it on the next big thing, like striker to striker, Vardy to Kane, if Kane gets injured or whatever. Like, make sure that the player that you're going through is actually what is working for your team. That sounds like a good caveat.
It sounds like a good caveat. It's just, I also just don't like not spending the money, because
a lot of people don't. What is that? That's a you thing. I feel like that, like, the game, like, it gives you a bank and then people don't use it.
You can pick players though. That my favorite kind of players are like Kane last season, before before everyone owned him. These players that are, they're a bit expensive, and so no one owns them.
Yeah.
So, say for example this season, people are looking at Vardy. This is probably an awful example. They're looking at Vardy and he's too expensive. I'm not going to get him.
Yeah.
Eliminate him. If he then goes on a run of scoring like a brace, he scores a penalty, he scores another brace, people are going to be very slow to get him in. This could apply to Mane. This could apply to Son.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, if you've got that money, you can use it on players that other people don't own, so they can be really low ownership because of their price.
So you use price points as a way to, uh, or you can use them as a way to validate a differential, a highly priced differential.
Can because look at Lingard. Like if Lingard started scoring, everyone just got Lingard in because it was easy.
Yeah.
But if someone like Vardy or Aubameyang or Mane starts scoring, it's a lot harder. And I guess we saw it a little bit with Trent as well, where people were like, "Oh, is he actually good again? Is he back?"
That's
And you might then
interesting.
have this premium player playing well at small ownership for more than just a week.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of. So if you pick right, you could propel yourself even farther because it'll take people more time to get them.
It can go wrong as well.
Well, you could just be spending a lot of money on Havertz or whatever, or Werner.
Well, exactly. It can go wrong, but I mean, obviously, a lot of things like that went wrong for me last season. But it doesn't mean it can't work, and it doesn't mean it doesn't work.
I kind of like that though. I never thought about that. I feel like the pros don't outweigh the cons, but I do know what
The
you're
pros
talking
outweigh
about.
the cons if the player's good
Well, aye, but we'll
and
never know
and
that.
returning.
Aye, we'll never know that, and that's the problem.
No, that's the fun
Um,
of FPL.
aye, and that's the rub, innit? Let's move on to the next one, which is no hits. So I've got a wee clip with no hits. Ready to go?
Here you go.
Week. I mainly do hits if it's going to help me get a good captain in. So if I know I want a player and I'm going to trust him with the armband, I'm much more likely to do it. And
Right, okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
All right.
What? So you do hits for captains. How were your hits last season, mate?
Oh, do you know what? Like I very rarely ever do like a -8. And last season I did 3 -8s and a -12, and they weren't.
All over the place.
I don't even think any of them were captains. But to be fair, there was a point where I got 3 Arsenal players in. I think Aubameyang got malaria, your old mate Kieran Tierney got injured, and Saka got injured as well. Like honestly, there were times where I couldn't even get out like 8, 9 players. So I'm not making excuses with this one. I hate taking hits, but just last season I got
Yeah, you're just in a bad
shafted.
place.
It's hard to learn from that, isn't it? Don't
Yeah, I mean, is
get
it
shafted?
don't lose players to injury, guys. Rule
Don't let your
number
players
4.
get malaria. Don't pick players who are traveling to high risk countries that haven't had their vaccinations.
Hey, you know that's not bad. That's not a bad like rule 8 guest rule.
Maybe it'd be better than one from last year.
Oh, don't spoil it. I can't wait to get to it.
Oh yeah.
But the yeah, so no hits thing is a very obvious. It costs you points. Why would you want to do that? It'll only work if A, you're taking hits for the long run, B, it's for a captain so you can double the chance of getting your points back, because you get double points for a captain. Welcome to FPL. And then finally, it would be if you can't get a player out, so you weren't going to get any points for them anyway. But the problem with hits, and as we all know, is that they can go wrong and it can set you further back. And I think the thinking of, I have 8 players for the next game week, so I have to fill a full 11, is totally flawed. And we've seen it a lot for COVID stricken games. And last season was a massive test of your fortitude for hits. That I started thinking about hits and transfers in general as a -4 and not just hits. So that it forced me to be even more patient with my transfers. So you get a free transfer every week, and I was thinking that even those were going to be -4, so that it made me think, oh, you know what, I'm just going to hold off. I'm going to have 2 free transfers for next week. And that worked quite often simply because of COVID. Like I was able to bring in players. It was almost like an ultra safe version of FPL. I'm not averse to getting players out because they're injured, but at the same time, and you knew I was going to bring it up, Kane got injured and he was out for a month apparently. And I was like, look, I've got like $1 million worth of value in him. If I transfer him out, I'm just going to have loads of money in the bank that I want to spend elsewhere. And even though I've been doing really well with that, if I end up spending that money, it's going to take me 2 transfers to bring him back, which would be, as we're following my logic, would be a minus 16 technically, 2 transfers to get rid of him and someone else in, and then reverse it, right? And is minus 16 worth doing that for Kane? Even, especially if I know I'm going to be bringing him back. And the answer was like, absolutely not. So I just didn't do it. And I just left him in my team. And what happened?
I remember it vividly because it was West Brom. That game was West Brom. Yeah. And I remember Kane came back and everyone was like, oh my God, Kane's back. We've all sold him. And you were like, I still have Kane.
Not only did I have him, but I started him.
Didn't captain him though, but yeah.
Well, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I think you would have captained him though.
I sold him, and I was jealous, but I was also very happy for you. Like I think you were the only person who had him. It's interesting because I don't like taking hits. I genuinely don't, despite what I just said. It's just sometimes I guess you just can't plan for this kind of stuff. Yeah. Like I was bringing in like players, and that, and not all of it was that. Some of it was, I was just like, use a poker term, like I was on tilt and just like, especially towards the end of the season.
Yeah, you're just trying to paddle against the current, pretty much.
Yeah, basically. But I'm still quite hit averse, unless there's a very good reason for it. Double game weeks, triple game weeks, things like that.
Did you eventually
want to bring in a captain?
Did you eventually do a captain hit? Did you do any last season, do you think?
I'd be lying if I said I knew. I think I might have done one for KDB when he got his brace, actually. But
all right, that's not bad.
Yeah, but again, the season was pretty much done before that, so
yeah, you were just
let's move on to the next one, Dave.
All right, we're moving on to the next one. The next one is Wildcard with a plan. I'm gonna guess. Actually, I won't guess. I'll just play it. Right, ready?
Let's go.
Well, so the first one, I like to have a plan as well because last season was the first one in years that I didn't wildcard early, and I think I was just holding, but I didn't know what I was holding for.
So you were in the same kind of vein as me.
Yeah, and I just ended up using it because I kind of needed Lundstrom and a couple of other players.
It's coming.
I don't think that's the way to play the wild card. I think
that's us. You don't think it's the way to play the wild card. So you are absolutely against holding your wild card.
It's unfair to say like against it, but I like to have a plan. And obviously last season, like I mentioned, it was a weird season because we had 4 teams blanking in game week 1. I think it was Villa, United, City, and I'm going to offend the team, but there was another team as well.
Place Turf Moor. Well, you're at Turf Moor.
Oh, God, move it down.
So we couldn't have Man City players, for example, and Wolves had a fixture swing in game week 3 as well. This was when we thought Wolves were good.
Yeah.
So I had this plan to, set up for 2 weeks, wildcard in game week 3, and happy days, top 10k finish. However, obviously it didn't go that way.
That's true.
The 3 Wolves players I brought in, they played West Ham. They lost 4-0, including Raul Jimenez scoring an own goal. And Man City obviously won the league at a canter, but they were awful at the start of the season. So I tripled up on Man City players. So
yeah,
again, like I don't regret doing that. Like Wolves had a good fixture swing, Man City had good fixtures, and not many people had those players. So I think I'm happy with the idea of what I did. But the outcome of what I did was awful, and I still had a plan. So I'd like, even this season, I'm going to have a plan, and I'm going to do that plan. Haven't fully looked at all the fixture swings, etc. yet. I must admit, because I've been busy with the Euros.
No, that's okay. We'll probably get into that in a separate video.
We will.
I think it's around 7 or 8 this season. But it was interesting because last season was the first season that I have played that it seemed to be extremely popular to hold your wild card till the very last game week that you could, because it was very close to the first big double or blank of the season, which was I think game week 18, and the last time you could wild card was game week 16. Was that right? Something like that.
Something like that rings a bell.
So, and one of the things that happened because of that was that a lot of people ended up using it in game week 9 or 11 or 13, like randomly, because they had it for so long, and then because they hadn't been where they wanted to be in their overall rank. they gave in to temptation and they used it. A lot of people did wait until game week 16 and then they used it, and then because of COVID, it didn't really matter anyway. And a lot
All
of
the
people were
fixtures
taking
changed,
hits
yeah,
and everything
yeah.
changed. So it's interesting. That is one point, and to just hone in on that right there, the COVID thing is that you are hoping that if you hold your wild card for 4 months or whatever it is, that it will be better then than you could use it now. And that is wishful thinking. Now, sometimes it will work out, but I guarantee you that the people who wildcarded early, the majority of them didn't bring in triple wolves, and they did okay. Like I wildcarded game week 3, and I brought in like Martinez, Justin, I think, Taylor from Burnley, who ended up doing really well throughout the season for some reason. I just kept him the longest. De Bruyne, who did do okay, and a few others. Yeah, so it wasn't the best wild card ever, but
I'd have done better if I'd held my wild card. But in hindsight, I mean, you say like earlier, or I say, I didn't get Salah. I took a risk not having Salah for one game week. People captained him and he got 40 points. I then went to get triple Man City, who are the best team in the league. Like some people held their wild card. I mean, if Man City went mental, which they did for good chunks of the season, just not early on in the season, this whole conversation could be completely different. We'll be like, oh, well done, you went early on triple Man City. People didn't bother getting Man City. So that could be the same as Salah, but, with 3 players instead of 1. So
I think the way that you use your wild card is also very important in this, is that like, because I have the template team to start, my wild card is used to then get all the players that I didn't get, like the outskirts of my team. So my core team didn't change. I still had Salah and whatever, but it was a good chance to change the goalkeeper, which I probably wouldn't have done and used a transfer on. It was a really good way of changing my bench, because it's kind of like the Lundstrom of that season. If you didn't have Lundstrom, and then you would have suffered, right? And we all remember either getting him early or waiting for ages. Oh, he can't continue. And there's always a player every season like that. So the early wild card's a great way of getting them in. But I think that if you're using your wild card really early and just absolutely like decimating it for fixtures only, then there is a chance that like that is going to fail, because you got triple Chelsea, didn't you? And then triple Wolves and triple Man City.
Yeah, triple Chelsea was a few weeks after the wild card. Like I used transfers to get a couple of them in, but it was the triple Wolves and the triple City.
But it's interesting that so I would never ever do that in a million years. That is the most unsafe way of using your wild card, I think.
I mean, that's why we've gone through my ranks on a video we've just done, where I've had very good seasons, I've had very bad seasons,
and I think that's fine. And you know what, this almost is a great reason why these rules do work for managers and won't work for other ones. They'll probably work if you don't know what type of manager you are, and then you follow these rules and they don't work for you, and you feel like you're not really able to follow them. You want to follow your gut instinct and stuff, because you're a very gut instinct type of manager. I don't think these rules would work, because you do stuff like that and bring in triple, and they could really pay off. And sometimes you do so well.
I'd also say it just varies from season to season as well. So if you've got your way you like to play, the way you enjoy to play, and then you have a bad season, if you then change it the next season, that could have been the season. Like, say you play the same way every single year for 10 years in a row, you're going to have, amazing seasons. You're going to have awful seasons.
That's
so I
true.
think not chopping and changing. You could be reactive, like in the short term, but you can also be reactive to, like, a season, for example. You could be like, because last season, a lot of people were going into it like, I'm going to start upside trading, obviously because of Late Riser, who he did Nate Simple Rules, and he had a bad season as well. But people were going to start mimicking his style because he did so well.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting.
Like, oh, I'm going to play like someone who plays safely because that worked so well last season. And
that's true.
I mean, it could go completely the other way. It could be something in the middle. There could be some new thing we've not even thought of. Like,
that'd be good. I bet Late Riser's thought of it, and he will be coming on the 8 Simple Rules thing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to that one. But I do think that is a thing. Like, you could play a certain way, and it could be different in every season. And sometimes I wish, it's like Football Manager, where you could sim the seasons really fast. Because sometimes you can be your own worst enemy.
That would be great, by the way. See if we could just sim it. I know that a lot of people were doing that when the fantasy football guys that were doing the championship manager. Yeah, and they would like sim the season, see who did well, and then they'd play the game and
you
just
think there's
and
only
go back.
38 game weeks. Like it's not, but you don't have to make that many decisions. Obviously, there's millions of outcomes you could come to, but you're not actually making like that many decisions.
And that's the best thing about the 8 simple rules aspect is that this, if I bring in a manager that's completely against all of them, and someone is watching us thinking, oh, you know what, that the way that he's speaking or the way that she's speaking actually is something that I would prefer to do, then you can follow their advice in that way and see if that works for you. But the thing is that I think the worst thing you can do is be inconsistent in which rules you're following. So what I would recommend is taking these rules, picking and choosing what parts you like and you don't like, and make your own rules and stick to them and see if that works for you to the end of the season. And then next season, just review it and be like, I actually really hated doing that. Or I didn't follow that at all because it just didn't go with what I was feeling at the time and it was really difficult. Or you could be honest and say, oh, you know what, I totally forgot them. Or I wasn't able to do anything that I wanted to do because I had 18,000 injuries or whatever. So it is interesting. We're going to finish up with your guest rule. So I gave every guest the opportunity to give me a random rule that I'd either missed.
You didn't warn us before we recorded, just so people know.
It's a great idea. In hindsight, it wasn't very well executed, but I figured like if I tell you guys, then you'll have time to think of something really good and you'll upstage my rule, which you absolutely didn't. Let's have a listen.
So my rule was that I was going to captain Trent Alexander-Arnold last season 5 times.
Wow, that was your rule. You made that a rule.
I made that a rule, and I did it once.
And how was your? How did you feel?
I feel like I let myself down.
And you did let yourself down. You captain what? Who? Okay. What kind of rule is that? Who does that? Why was that a rule? Explain the thought process.
I guess the first thing was, no, to be fair, I was going to say you sprung it on me, but it was something I wanted to do because obviously he's one of the highest scoring players in the game.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stick with him all season, and I wanted to captain him 5 times because I think he's better than a lot of other options. The thing that annoys me about Trent was I got back on Trent and Robertson maybe about game week 28, 29. I was on the double up, and I remember getting a lot of I was doing awfully at the time, obviously. Yeah. I was getting a lot of feedback like, why have you still got Trent? Why have you still got Trent? Why have you still got Robertson?
Yeah.
Eventually, I listened, I caved in, and I removed them both.
So you had that gut instinct, and then you shared that gut instinct with thousands of people. They all disagreed with your gut instinct, and then you.
It wasn't thousands, but yeah, a lot of people were like,
guys.
They'd be like, the reason you're doing badly is you've got Trent. So eventually, I can see you doing that.
But, you're not supposed to see.
well, I saw it. But so I removed Trent, and then I remember a couple of game weeks later, he scored a goal. Stop it, Dave. he scored a goal, and he suddenly became essential again.
Yeah.
And he was a must own, and I just sold him. I think I'd wildcarded him out, so I think it was a little bit different. Because I kept the wildcard. That wildcard I kept till quite late, but. Yeah, I wanted to captain Trent 5 times. I mean, it wasn't a firm rule, and obviously he didn't look as good during the start to the middle of the season. So
yeah,
probably for the best, I didn't continue with that.
But were you a bit annoyed? You must have been annoyed when you set a rule, and the crux of the rule was this player who is a defender. And in seasons past, the rule has always been a very hard no captain defenders.
Yeah, that rule's rubbish.
And your rule was really a counter to that, which is, well, why wouldn't I captain someone who has got the same assist potential as other midfielders, but can also get a clean sheet? Like that seems like a no-brainer. And to be fair, if they had the same season that they did previous, then maybe you would have hit your 5 and you might have been able to do some damage with that.
Yeah, I mean, just look at player scores over the season. Like defenders are always, they're quite high up there, or the very premium defenders. Like for example, like Robertson, for example, he him and Trent were like, they were right up there. Obviously, they were pretty similar to Watkins. I think they were both on about 160, 165.
Yeah.
Them two and Watkins. But it's not necessarily, but they have quite high ceilings as well. So you could bink, a double-digit haul. It just wasn't their season last year, and that could be a rule maybe for this year. Once we know Van Dijk's back, Liverpool are looking like a little bit more like they were.
Are you going to bring back Are you going to bring your Trent rule back? Captain him 5 times.
I'm almost scared, Dave, to agree to anything on here in case you play this next year. So,
mate, it's always a good learning.
Yeah. It is. He's not in my team at the moment, to be honest.
Oh, really?
So that would be the first step. Would be to trust Trent and get him in. But
maybe be always captain Dallas. You could do that. You could captain him 8 times. Or whatever.
He's a midfielder now, though. So
who's the next one then? Would it be Dumfries maybe, or Dean?
He's signing for Everton.
I know.
It's tough. I don't know.
They're not 7.5 million. So see, now we're getting to the whole don't captain people who are cheap, which is not your thing at all.
Price doesn't even matter really, but
it so does though. It does. That's a whole other conversation. We didn't go to the we didn't do the simple captain choices because you're pretty much in the same agreement as me, and you showed me your captaincies for the season, and they were very similar to mine. Kane a lot, Salah a lot. Although Salah didn't do very well when he was captain. I feel like we've got the same kind of mindset with the captain choices.
Yeah, Salah absolutely destroyed my season with captaincy.
Yeah,
I captained him 6 times, and he averaged like 3.5 points.
Yes,
like 7 points once you double it.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. It's so bad for him. But I think we have to take that 8th rule that you brought in, that Trent thing, with that context of you are actually, despite what we've been saying this whole video, you're actually quite a conservative captainer. You don't really go too far out. You're not like late riser captain and Martial randomly and all that stuff, right? You use your team to show your maverick side, but your captaincy is usually very standard. So I think bringing that I'm going to captain Trent 5 times was a way for you to say, you know what, get out of that captain shell that you've been hiding under for this whole time. I'm glad you didn't do it, because to be honest, if you had followed that rule and you had the season that you had, like, you'd be even worse off than you were.
Maybe. I guess it depends what weeks I did them. Maybe if I captained Trent instead of Salah, I'd have done a little bit better. I might have made the top $500,000. But yeah, generally my captains I'm pretty safe with. Obviously I had a few crazy ones in there. I had like Ben Rama. I had a couple of Fodens with the triple captain.
That was good.
But Bale, for example, I had a few Vardys, but they all did well. They all did better than Vardy. So better than Salah.
Yeah, it's hard to get worse than Salah last season for the captaincy.
It's weird, isn't it, that the mistake I made in Game Week 1 was not owning Salah or captaining Salah, and then the rest of my season was destroyed by captaining Salah. And
you know what? That's why I said at the top of the video, maybe that just got into your head. Like, once you did get Salah, you weren't gonna miss out again on his haul, and you kept picking him instead of the obvious players.
It's the timing, but he was top of a lot of algorithms, captain polls. You look at all the stats and fixtures, and
it was
every time I captained Salah, it was like reluctantly, I have to captain Salah and be boring, and he did nothing. Yeah. The only goal I remember getting was he scored a penalty against Fulham when he was just about to be subbed, and then he got to take a penalty, then he got subbed.
And you captained him. Well done.
Yeah, that was all I got from him. So, and everyone had him captained anyway, so I didn't gain anything.
That would be so funny if that was the one time you didn't captain him.
Yeah, I know. That would be like when I didn't captain Bruno and he scored a penalty against West Brom. Sorry, he had a penalty saved against West Brom. Then it was retaken. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. That's not bad. All right. Well, that's a very decent introduction to the format and the way that we're going to be doing 8 simple rules. We've got 7 other, potentially 8. I don't know if this is going to count as the 8th one. I'm still not decided yet, but we definitely have at least 7 other 8 simple rules. So we're going to be going through all the rules that for those videos. We're going to find out exactly what those managers think of them. This was more of a post-mortem, and also just to make fun of Flapjack for his really rubbish season. Don't forget,
I enjoyed it, and I think it's been helpful. And
good.
That's it.
That's you. Please don't forget to join our mini league. 4U2742. A very easy one to remember. And of course, please subscribe to the channel. We are still trying to grow it. It's going to take a while, but there's a lot of things that come from having a decent amount of subscribers. It lets us do extra stuff and blah blah blah. So be awesome if
not,
you could
I'll
subscribe.
just make a few more. I'll make a few more YouTube accounts and give us a few more.
That'd be
thumbs up,
great.
might subscribe,
Mate, I don't
might
care.
turn the bell on. You know?
Amazing.
Sounds wrong.
I'm not even going to comment. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Rich.
Up the pod.